All right, welcome back to TEW Impact. We are finally at Slammiversary 2022. I personally, this is one of those days where I'm struggling to stay awake, so I'm hoping doing this will, keep me awake. But yeah, apologize if this comes off as low energy, but it's not like I've ever had much to begin with. But let's do this. Instead of going straight to Slammiversary, we do have some news worth reporting. So I have like a mini write up, including the numbers from our previous Impact. Um, Before the Impact, point oh 0.01 TV rating as always. Overall rating was a 30, which was up from 27. Unfortunately, our Impact numbers were down across the board. Uh, TV rating dropped to a 0.28, down from a 0.30. Overall rating of 40, down from a 48. And then attendance to 339, down from 371. So unfortunately, our go home episode was not able to maintain momentum going into Slammiversary. A 0.28 rating and a 40 rating, normally otherwise would probably have, been fine. But considering, the jump up from with having Samoa Joe on those last couple shows, kind of went back down again. I'm sure our attendance has also suffered from um regional battles, my regional battle penalty. Even though it hasn't been as bad as it has been in you know, previous months. Still took a decent hit last week, so you would think, having Samoa Joe on your shows would bump up the numbers, and it did, but they kind of, stabilized back down again. Like I said, a 40 overall rating would normally be decent, but considering we had a 48 last week and 0.30, which, our numbers last week were the highest we've ever hit on multiple levels, so I guess they had to come back down again. But yeah, kind of disappointing considering we're going into, at least for now, the biggest pay-per-view of the year. Personally don't know what I have planned for Bound for Glory, which I will get into later, probably after the show. But yeah, let's keep going. We got some other news worth mentioning. Um, with Impact, Eric Young and Chris Sabin have fully recovered from their injuries. Um, Eric Young has been out this whole time. He had surgery done to speed up the process a little bit, but now he's finally back just in time for a match with Joe Doring at Slammiversary. And then Chris Sabin had a minor injury a few weeks ago. We kept the schedule light. I think we only had Alex Shelley wrestle a singles match in the last couple of weeks, and otherwise they just didn't been doing uh, promos and angles instead of matches. So just in time, I imagine the Ultimate X match being quite physically intensive. Laredo Kid requested a pay raise from $70 to $140 per show, which was granted. Probably still on a handshake deal. It's not like we use him regularly, so that's not um something I'm too worried about as far as our finances. The NXT, WWE NXT UK side, Kushida extended his contract, and then Primate suffered an undisclosed head injury, a few weeks to heal, not expected to miss time. Um, some big news here, AEW. MJF defeated Cody Rhodes and Eddie Kingston at Fyter Fest to win the TNT Championship. Case in point, normally we hold our big events on Saturdays. Slammiversary is on a Sunday, so tonight is Sunday. Fyter Fest would have been last night on Saturday, so this is when all this happened. Which is kind of why we have at least a decent amount of news. So, but yeah, MJF holding gold in AEW. Cody Rhodes no longer the champ, but considering last or a few days ago or within the last week, he is decided to going to NWA and PWG. So I guess not allowed to take the TNT title with him. NJPW Strong referee John Finnegan has signed an exclusive written contract. And then for Shine at their event, Lena Fanene and Kimberly defeated the Hex to win the tag team titles. That sounds like a really shitty team. uh, I would not want to see that. Sorry, the Hex. You deserve better, probably. International news for All Japan. Joe Doring is planned to join the sweeper stable after Ryoji Sai was kicked out. I don't know much of anything about All Japan, so I didn't check to see who was in the sweeper stable, but just mention this considering Joe Doring is on our roster. So, and then for OTT, Martina Session Moth Martina won the women's title at WrestleRama 4. And then it was announced that Damian Corvin is leaving in a month. I don't know who that is, but I put this in there because he is currently the promotion's gender neutral champion and one half of their tag team champs. So that might be an issue. And then miscellaneous Japanese news. I don't know how this happened. I took a screen grab, but I didn't include it. But Maki Ito somehow wrestled herself in a tag match on a freelance independent show in Okayama. So I guess she's a part of two different teams, but those two teams faced off at the show. Um, so is yeah, I don't remember. But it was just weird to see Maki Ito on both sides of the versus. Uh, so I don't know how that happened. She's only in the data once, so yeah. And then a few days later, she would suffer a strained patellar ligament at TJPW's Upper Kick Altogether show, but she's not expected to miss time. So I guess wrestling herself softened her up for an injury, and uh, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. Retirements, none were announced, considering this has only been, a couple days between Impact and now, but retirements that have officially gone into effect, Jerry Jarrett, JJ Dillon, Momo Nakanishi, Bruiser Mastino, also known as Mantar, Bill Goldberg, Lufisto, Daisuke Ikeda, Jerry Saggs, Jake Roberts, Tony Gurria, Sika Anoa'i, Kentaro Kanemura, Sam Houston, Cliff Compton, Sick Nick Mondo, The Messiah, and Maven Huffman. So, those are retirements. I believe that's all of our news. All right, we start off with our pre-show matches. We have a four-way elimination knockouts match. The order of elimination determining the order of entry for our knockouts tag team title match later on the night. Tennille Dashwood versus Janai Kai versus Killer Kelly versus Quinn McKay. Basically we have Janai Kai, the first, getting eliminated by a submission from Killer Kelly, and then Killer Kelly eventually getting eliminated by Tennille Dashwood, and then in an upset, Quinn McKay pinning Tennille Dashwood to win the match. Quinn McKay wins, so that means the order of entry we are going to have Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans and Madison Rayne and Brandi Lauren starting the match. Then um, the Inspiration, then the team of Rachel Ellering and Rok-C for the titles. We'll get into that match later, but needless to say, the process of elimination and everything might not even matter in the end, but we'll just play with it. Uh, kind of wanted this to get over Quinn McKay in the end, but I don't know if that actually worked. She had an in-ring performance of 19. She's the lowest of all of them. Tenille and Killer Kelly in the 30s. We are ending the Quinn McKay storyline overall. This is kind of like her, I guess, her big win. You know, she had a win over Killer Kelly a few weeks ago. She's getting a win on a pay-per-view pre-show over someone established like Tenille. So, you know, in the eyes of everyone, hopefully that would like put her over, but in the eyes of the game, who knows? But segment ring of 31, not too bad to start off the show with. Um, and that sets up events on our show proper. And then we go into Feast or Fired. We have Ace Austin, Avery Good, Brian Myers, Crazy Steve, Danhausen, excuse me, Danhausen, Diener, Falaba, Hernandez, Johnny Swinger, Caleb with a K, Larry with a D, Madman Fulton, Mance Warner, Nick Stapp, CPA, Raj Singh, Rich Swan, Shara, VSK, Willie Mack, and Zicky Dye. So 20 men vying for 4 briefcases. Um, I booked this as just a standard over the top battle royal, considering there is no such thing as Feast or Fired in this game, which might be for the best. But so I have the final 4 as actually it says Brian Myers. That doesn't count. Ace Austin, Danhausen, CPA, and Hernandez. As I had Hernandez as the most eliminations over the course of the match. So those are the winners of the briefcases. Basically the main spots in the match. Hernandez is the first to get a briefcase when he is able to get in the ring. He border tosses someone. Just I don't know, just grabbing like Crazy Steve or somebody. Border tosses someone out of the ring onto a group of people on the outside, so he's pretty open to get a briefcase for himself. We have a spot where Rich Swan is like fingertips away from getting a briefcase, but all of a sudden Su Yung comes out from underneath the ring and misses him and blinds him. Um Things to come from that later, but well, maybe not later tonight, but later on, you know, in story. But Swan does not get a briefcase, but CPA of all people is able to scramble up the pole and get the briefcase that Swan almost had. So, with those 2, we later get Danhausen getting a briefcase. Didn't have any really cool spot for him, but then basically the end of the match has Ace Austin and Johnny Swinger brawling on top of a turnbuckle, getting the final briefcase. But with the help of Madman Fulton, Fulton throws Swinger off and basically gives Austin the push to get the final briefcase. So the briefcase winners are Ace Austin, Danhausen, CPA, and Hernandez. We are ending the Ace Austin versus Swingers crew storyline with this match. Rich Swann is getting better at his gimmick, so there's some things I'm gonna play with later on with Swan and Su Yung. Um, the Swan and Willie Mack. I didn't really have them set up as a program, so there is no real resolution here. But basically, this is a collection of all of our like lower card talent, trying to sell our differences. Hopefully, maybe, who knows? But there's gonna be fallout from this. Segment rating of 39, and then to end the pre-show, we go into our we actually go to the ring. Um, Josh Matthews gets up from the commentary booth and tells everyone that had won a briefcase to stay behind. Everyone else is allowed to go to the back. Everyone who has a briefcase, um, come back to the ring with their briefcases. We are going to determine who got what shot and who will end up fired now. So as everyone comes back with their briefcases, Matthews has the keys to, well, whatever. Maybe they're not even locked. So whatever. Basically he commands everyone to open up all the briefcases at the same time so that we know who got what shot. So Hernandez, who was the first one to get one, he wins a tag team title shot. So he has a tag team title shot that he can cash in whenever he wants. Uh, Ace Austin, who won the last one, won the world title shot. So Ace Austin will have a world title shot. So then we get to Danhausen and CPA. Danhausen CPA, they have their they open up their briefcases. Danhausen gets the X Division title shot, so that means CPA will be fired. So segment rating of 23. Josh Alexander, not Josh Alexander, Josh Matthews announces that unfortunately CPA will be fired from Impact. In a funny note, Danhausen is also mad because he was expecting money in his briefcase and not a title shot. So he's mad despite, not getting fired, not getting, the worst, the punishment in this match. But unfortunately, CPA will be fired. Wink, wink. He won't actually be fired. This is set up to story later on. So we're not gonna fire. For those of you who, all you CPA fans out there, he's not gonna be, legit fired. We are building something with him later. So this will be an angle. The segment rating of 23. We start off the night not with a match, but with a segment. So as the show opens up, we get the Good Brothers. They come out to the ring. Um, they have microphones and they talk about how, maybe they weren't booked, but we can't have a party like Slammiversary without the Good Brothers, right? So they cut a promo. They're talking, they're doing their thing. They talk about how, maybe they're not tag team champions anymore, but guess that means they got a lighter schedule now. But eventually their shtick is interrupted by the Gospel of Violence, who we have not seen for a few weeks since they had been defeated by the Wolves. Um, they immediately get into the faces of the Good Brothers. And their thing is they just want to fight. They just want to fight. They came to Slammiversary. They haven't been seen for weeks, and they're hungry. They want to fight. And the Good Brothers are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't really come to fight. We can oblige you, but personally, you know, we don't. We actually respect you. We respect you guys. They've done this before, where it's like, well, they've kind of backed out of a fight. Like, we don't want to fight with you guys, but we'll fight with you guys. Four of us, we could make a hell of a team. And I know there's at least four jabronis in the back who also haven't been booked for a big show at Slammiversary. So, come out, make yourselves famous. We can do an 8-man tag right now. So the first to answer is Sam Beal and Trey Miguel. Sam Beal more eager to uh, oblige the challenge than Trey Miguel, but Trey Miguel follows him regardless. And, the Good Brothers like, oh, isn't this cute? The team that, has been wanting to prove themselves. Didn't we both of us beat these guys already? Uh, so they talk, but, it's like, that's fine, but that's only two of you. Eventually Dalton Castle comes out. Make it a third. And they're like, okay, this is getting a little bit more interesting, but still, it's 4-on-3. There's got to be someone else in the back wanting to, get their spot on the show and, you know, get themselves, booked or whatever. Jonathan Gresham. comes out eventually as the fourth man. So, we finally got 4-on-4, and, still they're not really impressed, but they're like, well, this is going to be interesting, but let's go. We got 4-on-4. Let's do this right now. So, you know, 8-man tag impromptu to start the show off, segment rating of 32 to set it up for the actual match. We get a segment rating of 39 where the face team wins. Dalton Castle, Trey and Sam, and Jonathan Gresham win. When Dalton Castle eventually pins Tyler Bateman. So, the teams that were, spouting all their trash, they, lost. You know, maybe it's a bad omen after both teams losing to the Wolves. So, who knows? But we got the plucky underdog babyface team defeating the big bad heel team. Dalton Castle going over Tyler Bateman clean. Segment rating of 39. Sam Bill was the weak link, which was expected, but with a 27 compared to, people in the 40s and 50s here. Doc Gallows and Dalton Castle 50, Gresham at 49, Carl Anderson at 48. So, mostly something to get, people on the card. We get, like I said, the plucky underdogs, hopefully give them a chance to shine over the big bad heel teams, but hopefully maybe something to lead us into the future. Match rating of 39. Hopefully a solid start to this show. And then we go to the digital media championship match. Zhao Zia defeating Chelsea Green in 5 minutes. Zhao wins the digital media title. Chelsea Green didn't really have a chance, but surprisingly, they have great chemistry. So I was kind of worried going into this match. Chelsea hasn't been doing the greatest. She has a in-ring performance of 29 compared to Zhao's 36, but basically a straightforward match. I wouldn't say a squash, but Chelsea, we have Chelsea going against, the martial arts expertise of Zhao Zia. Didn't stand much of a chance, so Zhao, the clear winner here. She wins the digital media impact or the impact digital media title, segment rating 31, and then we get a celebration, post-match celebration. She's with the holding up the digital media title belt. She's elated. Chelsea Green, not so. Of course, that could be an omen for later tonight, considering her best friend Deonna Purrazzo has to defend her knockouts title later on tonight, and Deonna was nowhere to be seen. So of course, Chelsea didn't have her helping hand with her, so she again didn't really stand much of a chance considering with Zhao's martial arts. But she's getting better at her gimmick. Segment rating of 36. We have a new champion. We go into our grudge match where Joe Doring defeats Eric Young in 7:48 with a Death Valley driver. We had this is Eric Young's first match back since getting injured. Violence by design, falling apart. Joe Doring turning face. You know, Eric Young bringing in Damien O'Connor. Damien O'Connor accidentally hits Young. Joe Doring is able to capitalize. Um, kind of had this go short because we basically wanted I think I booked this as a wild brawl. Yeah, wild brawl. Joe Doring, in-ring performance 31. Eric Young with a 30. Just kind of surprising. I know he's coming off of injury, but considering, his, you know, I know people are lowly rated in this game, but, I don't know how badly that injury affected him. The storyline has gained heat, but we are ending it with this match. So, Joe Doring, free of uh, the machinations, I guess, of Eric Young and his associate Damien O'Connor. Segment rating of 37. At least till the end of the match. Eventually, Eric Young and Damien O'Connor are able to double team Joe Doering post match until the music of Lance Archer hits. Lance Archer storms out to the ring. He, doesn't necessarily run out, but, big threatening man. He just kind of, stomps his way out to the ring. Eric Young and Damien O'Connor immediately bail. They do not want any of Lance Archer. Um, for a second, Archer helps Doering up to his feet, and they look to have like an agreement until suddenly Archer lays out Joe Doering. So that is why we are ending the Doering versus Young angle, because now we're going into Doering versus Archer. So hopefully that'll be cool. Segment rating of 33. Lance Archer's gimmick is very good. He's got a badass gimmick, so no really pros and cons. So hopefully, considering two big, tall, beefy dudes throwing down, should be a good time. But yep, Lance Archer returning to Impact for the first time in years and immediately setting his sights on the big man Joe Doering. We get our X Division title match where Swerve Strickland defends against Mike Bailey and Chris Bay. And basically Swerve comes out clean. Swerve retains the title in 10:18 when he pins Chris Bay with a 450 splash. Basically just wanted to show these guys off. Segment rating of 49, so best match so far. Everyone has solid in-ring performances. Storyline gaining heat. So basically, the storyline is just, getting Swerve over as the X Division champion. So no real shenanigans. Just a high spot match where, showing these guys off and what they can do, and you know, because they are very good at their jobs. But yeah, Swerve comes out. Slammiversary, the X Division champion, once again defends number 3. So good for him, and a good match. We get a backstage angle where the Inspiration are, preparing for the Knockouts tag team title match. Once again, yelling at Tenille Dashwood. They're like, you really should have won that match. We don't want to go in before we don't have to. We should have gone in last so we could just pick up the scraps and get out of there. You really dropped, of course things could be worse, but you really dropped the ball. Eventually Quinn McKay, the winner of that match, walks by and they she kind of uh humble brags a bit about winning the match, and they're just like, oh well, you think you're so special, we'll beat your friends, you know later on tonight. Well, I think the match is next, but we'll come out somehow. We'll come out still the tag team titles. And then Jessie puts in a snide remark about how she doesn't appreciate Quinn having her last name. So a little something to get Quinn McKay on the main show. But once again, recapping the order of the uh, Knockouts tag team title match, we have uh, Tasha and Savannah versus Madison and Brandi starting out, then the Inspiration, then Rok-C and Rachel. So could be worse, but for them. But of course, they want the best possible outcome. Segment rating of 34. Then we go to the match proper, where um I booked this as just a regular or a regular 4-way. I no, it is an elimination. Ignore this elimination. I probably my thing was I wanted to do a gauntlet match, but I decided like, do I really want to do like three short knockout tag team matches in a row? and I just decided to stick it all in one segment as one match. So basically, ignore all this. We start off the match with these two teams, and it's barely much of a match because pretty much Savannah Evans grabs Brandi Lauren, lays her out, and gets the pin almost instantly. Madison Rayne doesn't even get into the ring. That's why I have Brandi at limited involvement. I probably could have had Madison Rayne at like no involvement, but considering she's probably one of the more tenured and experienced stud in this match, probably could have helped out the number. But yeah, so the uh Gauntlet part of the match doesn't really favor the Inspiration at all because the first team gets eliminated almost immediately. And of course, there's some dissension between, of course, Madison and Brandi. Um, or Madison, rather, not being too happy with Brandi. Then it goes to Tasha and Savannah versus the Inspiration. The Inspiration eventually squeak out the victory, likely by cheating. And then they have to face Rachel Ellering and Rok-C, uh, and they also fall to the Inspiration. They do not, even though they got the winner's advantage, they do not are not able to capitalize over the dastardly Inspiration. So the Inspiration somehow still walking out of Slammiversary, retaining the Knockouts Tag Team titles. Defense number 4. We had Madison Rayne and Cassie Lee off her game. Flow of the match was hurt because some of the workers were having little to no involvement. That was as planned because basically I wanted them out right away. So basically the Inspiration had to go through at least 2 teams to, walk away with the titles, which they did. So segment rating of 28. A low number, but probably better than the alternative of booking like 3 tag team matches in a row, or three small tag team matches in a row, which probably would have gotten weaker numbers, and just kind of having more weaker numbers instead of just one big one, then you know probably helps us out in the end. We get a video hyping the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Wolves for Ultimate X. Um, lost heat with the segment, but basically killing time while they set up the Ultimate X apparatus. Think, imagine, the show. I didn't mention it beforehand, but imagine the entire show having like the big metal trusses, or the big metal like trusses in each corner. Because we also have Lethal Lockdown later tonight, so that would probably help out with setting up the cage later on. But we have the 4 metal trusses, one in each corner to connect the X from. So of course, killing time to set that up. But also we have a tale of the tape that I put together. Um, Probably going to cut in a graphic that I badly made, likely. I haven't made it yet, but um, there's some interest, pulled up some interesting tidbits to set up this match. For Ultimate X, we have had 45, or not we, but Impact TNA throughout its history has had 45 Ultimate X matches as of now. Number 45 was our women's Ultimate X that we had in January. That was actually the 45th match in company, or 45th Ultimate X match in company history. So this is number 46. The Motor City Machine Guns have had 4 appearances together as a team, 3 of them being victories. But as for total, Chris Sabin has made 17 appearances with 8 victories, including those tag team victories. And then Alex Shelley has made 7 appearances, 4 of them victories. But the Wolves, they might not have been in as many Ultimate X's, but they technically have a better record because they have an undefeated record. Um, they have 1 appearance as a team with 1 victory, and then Eddie Edwards has had 2 appearances 2 victories, and Davey Richards, that one appearance was his one, with a 1 victory. So technically, the Wolves are undefeated in Ultimate X matches, but they have also not nearly been in as many as Alex Shelley, and definitely not as many as Chris Sabin. Uh, and then as far as their tag team title reigns, the Motor City Machine Guns are currently on their 3rd reign. The Wolves have had 5 reigns. They are tied with Beer Money for the most reigns in the company, and if they win tonight, they will break that record, being a 6-time tag team champions. And yeah, that's it for the tail of the tape for Ultimate X. Going to Ultimate X, and the Wolves defeat the Motor City Machine Guns in 1450. Eddie Edwards retrieving the belts. The Wolves win the tag team titles, segment rating of 53, which good. Figured they would be good. Um, Almost everyone in the 60s except Chris Sabin with a 54. Their storyline is gaining heat. Technically, I had Motor City Machine Guns involved in the Wolves versus Good Brothers storyline near the end, but this is like technically the start of their storyline together. So the Ultimate X, there will likely be more matches between them in the future. The Motor City Machine Guns will definitely want to stake their claim as the best team in Impact history, but considering the Wolves won a record-breaking title reign, um, the argument could be made for them that they are the best. Excellent chemistry for the Guns, great chemistry for the Wolves, bonus tag team specialist bonus for the Guns. So, yeah, likely putting this, I wanted to put this in Ultimate X considering this is Slammiversary. I don't know if Ultimate X really bumped up the scores any. I probably could imagine these two could, breaking that score or making that score in just a regular match, but this is Slammiversary. And I had them as set to steal the show. Yeah, set the match to steal the show. So I was kind of hoping they would kind of go above and beyond, but, you know, considering these are like 2 of the best acts in company right now, I can't be disappointed, but part of me wanted that number to be a little bit higher. So, but still really good. 53, likely a candidate for the best match we have done so far. I would have to look at the Wolves versus the Good Brothers from a couple weeks ago, but I think that was like a 50. So, yeah, good match. But the Wolves come out finally after months of having to deal with the Good Brothers and, all their things, and Davey getting injured for a bit. Finally getting their record breaking title reign. And then they celebrate after the match. New champs, segment rating of 46. The Wolves triumphant once again. All right, we get a promo from Samoa Joe to set up the title match with Josh Alexander in the main event tonight. We honestly haven't heard much from Samoa Joe. He was silent up until last week or the last episode of Impact, where he basically just agreed to the additional stipulation of the breaking the no contract clause for Scott D'Amore if Josh wins. But Joe wants to clear the air. He has no Scott D'Amore with him right now, and he has nobody at up north, quote unquote, holding him back from saying what he's got to say right now. So he basically talks about Josh Alexander's claim about wanting to carry Impact on his back, and Joe can definitely respect that because he had the same mentality and he did that for years. but the difference is when Joe put Impact on his back, it was back when Impact actually meant something. You know, Josh Alexander might be putting some heavy rocks into a duffel bag and, putting that on his back, but when he carried Impact, he was carrying a mountain. That's the difference between him and Josh Alexander, and that's the difference between him and Impact as a whole, because he comes back, he looks around, and he can't see anybody that can hang with the likes of him or AJ or Daniels or Kazarian or, any of the crew from back in the day. Impact is not what it used to be, and he knows that. So while he respects Josh Alexander, he has no problem with what he's about to do to him tonight. And he has no problem with taking the Impact World title later tonight. And for those people out there who are complaining that, Joe going to, Joe leaving Impact and quote unquote selling out to, WWE means that he's gonna phone it in and that he's lost a step. Don't get it twisted. Joe's back in Impact mode tonight. He's gonna come out and he's going to bring back to Impact what they have been missing for all these years, and he's going to go all out and make sure that he wins the Impact World title because he is Samoa Joe 24/7. uh, in reference to his 24/7 title. And Impact's just going to be another title around his waist and on his mantle. Um, and he's just going to walk out with the title and basically continues on like that. But the general gist is that, we are getting the old Samoa Joe back, as at least what he claims. Segment rating of 44. Samoa Joe came across well. I would hope so. Kind of hope that would have gotten a little bit bigger rating, but still can't be picky. We do a entrance for Mickie James, who is the guest referee for the Knockouts title match. Um, Only a segment rating of 23, which is kind of sucks. I did this kind of hoping to get a bigger number. The lack of anything interesting happening segment was a problem, but kind of wanted a big appearance from a star to, get a bit of a pop. Um, Kind of, I guess you could say, giving a entrance to the referee in a match overshadows the match. Um, but let's hope not. I have confidence that Deonna and Rosemary can put in a great match. Let's find out. 44, not bad. Rosemary defeating Deonna Purrazzo with a red wedding. No real shenanigans from the guest ref. Of course, probably shaking Deonna Purrazzo mentally on the inside, but she, wouldn't want to show it. Of course, I'm sure there were probably cracks in her facade, I guess. But Rosemary eventually able to win the Knockouts title. Uh, we are ending this storyline with Rosemary winning the title. Um, so yeah, that was the end game all along. Rosemary, once again, the Knockouts champion, segment rating of 44, and we get a title celebration for her, holding up the belt to end the show. Segment rating of 46, so not too bad. Probably our highest women's um match. I would have to do some investigative digging. I actually like as stupid as it sound, I have like a spreadsheet going, but I basically just have like the ratings and the match ratings and the TV ratings and like best segments, just to kind of see the ebb and flow of like what goes up and down over the course of time. But you know, our our knockouts segments are rarely the best of show, but hopefully this, match was good for what it was. But yep, Rosemary, once again, knockouts champion. We go backstage. We get a segment where we see Maria and Gail Kim coming out of their respective locker rooms, or their team locker rooms for Lethal Lockdown. Um, they basically come out and then they meet and kind of have I guess, a pre-match standoff. Talking about their strategies and whatever for their team. Reminder that Maria's team has the advantage for Lethal Lockdown for her team. Of course, Maria does not want to give away any strategy, but kind of alludes to the fact that so many, compiling so many attitudes for her team is kind of getting them on the same page has been a struggle, while Gail Kim's team have all really been on the same page. Eventually, Deonna Purrazzo interrupts the whole thing, and she's of course bummed out about the match that just happened, losing her knockouts title to Rosemary and Maria, and she's just kind of getting in Maria's face. She's like, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to get my title back? And Maria's like, well, I can't do anything about it now until we win Lethal Lockdown. So the sooner you get away from me, the more I can focus on the match and, owning Impact and running it. And once I run everything, you know, then we can settle your title issue. But until then, you know, leave me alone. So yeah, the fact that Maria's team may be big and bad, but of course probably a lot of conflicting personalities and a lot to control. So maybe there's some cracks in her strategy. We will see, but segment rating of 43, the storyline gaining heat. We get the Lethal Lockdown match. I did this as a 5-on-5 like regular cage match. Because for some reason there is no like war games in TEW unless I am dumb and missed it. Like there's no I could have sworn EWR had like, okay, you have your teams and you can select their uh order of entry for each team. Did not see a match type to do that in TEW. But again, this is my first time playing TEW, so I could have easily missed it. But in the end, despite having the advantage, Team Maria does not win Lethal Lockdown. Team Impact wins. Um, Probably going to throw up another graphic here, but I have Steve Maclin and Heath starting out. Black Taurus comes out for Maria's team with the advantage, which brings out Rhino for Team Impact. Then Matthew Rehwoldt comes out for Team Maria, which brings out Homicide. And then Morrissey comes out for Team Maria, which brings out Jordynne Grace. And then Michael Bennett is the last entrant for Team Maria, while Jake Something um, is the last entrant for Team Gail, and ends up with Jake Something getting the eventual pin over his recent rival Morrissey. Even though that program has ended, um, I've even though that was the planned finish, I kind of debated like their feud ending here, but there was a gap in between, so whatever. It's not a continuation of their feud. The Jake Something versus Morrissey feud is definitely over, but as I guess insult added to injury, Jake Something gets one more pin over Morrissey, this time with the stake of Impact on the line. So Jake Something saving Impact's butt, still under the the employ or the running of Gail Kim and Anthem Maria does not get the chance to buy out Impact. We have segment rating of 42, which I'm surprised by. I kind of wondered, just throwing these people in this program, this random assemblage. I was kind of wondering how that would end up, but I'm pleasantly surprised by that 42. Jordynne Grace actually having the best performance of the match is surprising. We have Jordynne Grace at 46, Homicide at 43, Michael Bennett at 44, which I figured Michael Bennett would at least bring in a good number. He's been doing well. Black Truce 35, Matthew 38, Maclin 37, Morrissey 38, Heath 37. So really, no one below 35. Yeah, no one below 35. So we have Maria doing good work at ringside, Robert Evans doing good work at ringside. We also had Matt Striker attempt to interfere on behalf of Team Gail. Didn't necessarily factor into the finish, but of course, showing that Matt Striker is on the side of Team Maria and wanting Ian Riccaboni gone from Impact so he can be the main commentator. Of course, that's not to be with Gail, Team Gail still, you know, winning for winning Impact for the status quo, I guess. Basically denying Team Maria from buying Impact and doing whatever she wants with it. So Impact stays where it's at. Then we get a brief segment with Josh Alexander um, preparing. I think it's like just a 1 minute segment where he's just kind of, getting in the headspace for his match with Samoa Joe, which I believe is coming up next. Um, segment rating of 36. All right, before we get to the main event, we gave a spectacular over the top entrance for Samoa Joe while we have him. Segment rating of 39. Again, the lack of anything interesting happening in the segment was a problem. I don't know if this is a common thing with the special entrances, so I'm wondering why I'm even doing them in the first place. I thought the point of them was to basically show off your big people. And considering Samoa Joe's the biggest one we got right now for the time, I gave him one, and yeah, segment 39. So kind of a bummer. But for the match, Josh Alexander defending the uh, Impact World title. I'm kind of like reading the thing while I'm doing this, but successfully defending the Impact World title in 23:53 by submission. So a long match. I booked this as an epic match. And then I said the match was too long given our audience, which um I could see that happening, but again, considering we have Samoa Joe coming back, I really wanted this to um be a big match. And it was segment rating of 45. Um Josh, the segment is gaining heat. Samoa Joe had a ring performance of 55. Josh Alexander 39. So I guess we have some more work with Josh, but that's what we're doing here. But basically, we wanted a long, epic match, a long back and forth. I I was kind of debating doing this as a technical masterpiece. But we know Samoa Joe, um, while technical, does like to throw down and do some heavy hitting. So I didn't want like purely holds. I wanted like a hard hitting match. So imagine that we got that, but in the end, Josh Alexander wearing down Samoa Joe to where he does end up having to submit to the ankle lock. Josh Alexander retains. Samoa Joe likely shocked at how good you know uh, Alexander was, and maybe he was taking Alexander too lightly. Um, maybe WWE did soften him, but we don't really say that. We don't want to say that. We don't want to piss anybody off while we are. But basically, Josh Alexander beats Samoa Joe. I don't have an angle for it, but imagine like Alexander does the handshake and Samoa Joe doesn't accept. He walks off. But because of the uh, stipulation added to the match, Josh Alexander gets 5 minutes alone with Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore dreading this. During the match we had Scott D'Amore distract Alexander. I know we've been hinting at a turn. I'm not going to turn him um, for reasons we'll probably find out later. But basically, not an active nuisance. Well, he is a nuisance to Alexander, but not actively so. Basically, his presence is enough to distract Alexander and maybe get him off his game. But eventually, Alexander overcomes, wins the match. Bibbity bibbity. Samoa Joe walks off, leaving Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore tries to follow him to the back so that he doesn't have to abide by the 5 minute alone stipulation until once Samoa Joe walks through the curtain. Scott D'Amore tries to follow him back, but the music of, well, I'm not gonna turn. Let's ignore. Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett is back in Impact. He comes out of the curtain. He is brandishing a guitar, and he basically points it at Scott D'Amore and says, basically tells him to get into the ring, abide by the contract, follow the 5 minutes alone with Alexander, because if you don't, then you'll have to deal with me and the guitar. Uh, Eventually, Scott D'Amore does. Basically, Jarrett walks him down to the ring and eventually pushes D'Amore into the ring. We get a segment where instead of Alexander um, putting his hands, and he basically gets a remote, or not remote, what am I talking about? He gets a microphone and cuts a promo, and he basically just wants to know why. He wants to know why Scott D'Amore did what he did, why he brought Samoa Joe to Impact, um, why he brought, he mentioned his wife and all this, and basically why he ruined their friendship. And D'Amore eventually gets a mic of his own, and he's like, or Alexander gives him the mic because he's all ears at this point. And Scott D'Amore cuts a promo where he's like, I didn't mean for this to end our friendship, and I meant every word I said a couple weeks ago on Impact, but I did this all for you. Look at, I brought Samoa Joe to Impact so that the eyes of the wrestling world could be looking at you, and I wasn't sure, but you did defeat Samoa Joe, and I am, as a coach and as a friend, I've never been more proud of you. But, every word I meant about um leaving Impact for greener pastures, I meant it. And he basically talks about he's like, I can get you into WWE. You don't, who knows how long Impact will be around. It's a shot. It's a miracle. It's lasted 20 years, but like I've said, there's been corporate sponsors coming in and out, bailing this place out. How long do you think that's going to keep happening? I don't want you, you know, I don't want you, basing your well, when you're putting Impact on your back, you're basing your entire future on Impact's future. And I don't want you doing that. And I don't want that for your wife and your kids. I don't want that for your career. And basically, he's saying all this in front of Jeff Jarrett, who just made his return to Impact, the company that he started. basically. He hasn't been here in years, but he's saying this in front of Jarrett, and he's just basically like, come to WWE with me. I can get you in. The eyes, like I said, the eyes of the wrestling world are looking at you now. Capitalize on this, and just, you know, I can still be your coach. We can still make this. And Alexander's just, probably on the verge of tears, and he's just like, I can't. Impact has been there for me, and I want to be there for it. Maybe on some level you're right, but I can't turn my back on Impact. And basically, the only contact he makes with D'Amore is that he gives D'Amore a hug. And basically, this is kind of like near the end of Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta asks for money, and from the mob boss, and the boss is like, I got to turn my back on you. Alexander's like, now, you know, you did all this to our friendship. Now I got to turn your back on you. You can go back to WWE, but I can't go with you. And, you know, basically their friendship is over, and both men are, kind of understand what each other have done, trying to build to like a tender moment. But then, as D'Amore attempts to leave the ring, Jeff Jarrett hits D'Amore with this guitar anyway. So after that tender moment is broken up by Jeff Jarrett laying out Scott D'Amore, Alexander, um, understandably, visibly upset at what Jarrett has done, but Jarrett grabs the Impact World title, gives it to Alexander, and raises his hand as Slammiversary goes off the air. So Josh Alexander still Impact World Champion, despite the biggest test of his career, and Jeff Jarrett returning. So returning with adequate gimmick. Finish the show. Overall rating of 46, which might be our best pay-per-view, but not our best Impact, considering a couple weeks ago was 48. But our those special entrances kind of hurt us, I guess. But we had some good matches. We had Ultimate X at a 53, the Knockouts title match at a 44, Lethal Lockdown at a 42, the World title at a 45, the X title at a 49. So, a lot of our title matches did really good. Um, but yeah, Slammiversary in the books. I don't know if anyone noticed, but I actually did select a arena for this show. Ironically enough, in FedEx Park in Memphis. So I normally do I just pick a generic venue, because Impact just kind of runs in bars that will take them anymore. But uh, yeah, I think we were projected to have, and part of why I did that was we were projected to have like maybe 18 or 1900 people. So I booked FedEx Park, which held 2000, which wouldn't quite be a sellout, but would have been close. We only got 1500s, but still pretty decent. Let's do our speech. Um, who have we? We should probably give this to. Okay, we did Shelly and Sabin last week. And we did Eddie before, but let's do Eddie and Davey for the Ultimate X. Where's Davey? There's Davey. So yeah, great performance for them. Um, I was gonna do Swerve again, but we did one for last week. Uh, let's do. We did Rosemary. We did Deonna a couple times. Let's do Jordynne Grace. Considering she was the highest, we'll praise her for a good performance. Considering she had the best performance in the Lethal Lockdown, I, you know, we can we can single these people out. Josh Alexander has been, you know, do we want to do Josh? No, let's stick with this. Let's stick with Jordynne Grace and the Wolves. Doing great to good performances. Make speech, pleased, pleased, pleased. So yeah, Slammiversary in the books. Like I said, probably your best pay-per-view, but not quite her best show. Um, but close. So I hopefully we're steadily going upwards, but yeah, Slammiversary is kind of a turning point right now for this particular show, I guess you could call it. Um, my I know I've mentioned like I think I might stop at Slammiversary, take an extended break from booking, but what I decided to do is I'm going to continue for a few more weeks because Against All Odds is the first week of July. So we really only have two episodes of Impact and then another pay-per-view. And that way, we're tying up, the show had a lot of angles finishing. So we can get the ball rolling on some new angles and some hope maybe some new people, some new faces. Starting with Against All Odds. Then I'll probably take a break because I still kind of got to figure out my kind of end game for Bound for Glory. Um, there's going to be a few pay-per-views in between there. But yeah, so I'm not sure how to send this off, but yeah, Slammiversary, good show. Stick around. We'll get the ball rolling on maybe some future plans. Who knows if we'll keep this momentum going, considering Samoa Joe. We basically only got him for this month, so I think we might have him for the next episode of Impact if we decide to use him. Um, but we have Jeff Jarrett. The man will not die. So we'll see why Jeff Jarrett has come back. Um, we got Josh Alexander, still Impact World Champion. We got some new champions, the Wolves, Rosemary, Xiaozia. So yeah, I think we're in a good place. We got some solid title. I think we got a solid roster, and I have plans to bring more people in. So, yeah, stay tuned. Maybe I'll only, be regular here for another couple weeks, but once I get my booking brain back in gear and toward figure out something towards Bound for Glory, maybe we can get back in high gear again. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.